Well, thank you all for joining me tonight. I'm really excited that people will get a chance to hear from all of you who have been interns at Touchstone and get kind of a feel for the benefits of doing an internship at Touchstone. So why don't we start by going around and I will just say your name, and then if you can introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, what brought you to Touchstone, and what medium you work in. That would be great. So Taylor Fentz.
Hi, my name is Taylor Fentz. This is my first year here as an intern, and I'm in small metals. And I came here as something to keep me engaged in the field between semesters in college, so over the summer. And I have a little bit of a list, so I'm gonna maybe be looking at it, but it doesn't make it any less genuine. I just wanted to make sure I didn't forget anything. So it was, one thing I noticed was that it was nice to be here in kind of a slightly different environment from university, where the expectations are, I don't want to say less, but they're different. It's a lot more exploratory here, and there's not as much pressure to make by a syllabus. And so I got to explore some different techniques that I wouldn't have otherwise, just to do something fun for a friend. But because I did that, I played with things that I tried in college and I thought I never wanted to do again, but now I feel a lot more comfortable with it. And so that was a really awesome realization.
And what medium are you working in, just so everyone knows?
Well, right now I'm working largely in steel, but I work in sterling silver and copper and brass. And the new techniques that I explored further were chasing and repoussé and enameling.
So you were working out of our small metal studio.
Yes.
Great. And we'll come back to more info about what you're doing. I just want to give everyone a chance to introduce themselves quickly.
Gotcha.
So, Jessica, why don't you tell us who you are, what you do, and what brought you to Touchstone?
Hi everyone, my name is Jessica Howerton. I also am in the small metal studio, and I work primarily with non-ferrous materials and some sterling silver as well. I am from Tennessee. I currently live in Middle Tennessee, and I heard about Touchstone through some of my friends that have either been here or past residents and or interns. So that's kind of how I heard about this opportunity and came here.
And is it true that you are also on a Wingate Fellowship?
I am. So this year I was given a Wingate grant.
Well, congratulations.
Thanks.
And Stacy?
I'm Stacy. I'm a ceramic artist based out of Minnesota. I started here as an intern a few years ago. I had seen an advertisement in Ceramics Monthly, so I applied. And since then, I've been working here at Touchstone as the Student Affairs and Gallery Coordinator.
Great. Meg?
Hi, my name is Meghan Burke. I'm originally from New Jersey, but have recently moved to Pittsburgh. And I came to Touchstone after going to a few residencies around the country, and this was my first experience actually working as an intern at a craft center. So I was excited to experience that difference.
Great. Dan?
Hello, my name is Dan Tomczyk. I had come to Touchstone a few years ago as an intern as well. I had kind of just been traveling and looking for a place to call home and feel comfortable in a studio. A friend of mine was an intern at Touchstone, and I had the opportunity to stay for the remainder of the summer. And through one of the employees at Touchstone retiring, I had the opportunity to take a full-time, like part-time position here at Touchstone, and I'm now the studio and grounds manager. And it's been really, really nice for me to go from finding a place that it was like comfortable and welcoming for somebody like myself, and then end up finding, I guess, like a career out of it, at least, yeah. So yeah, I work primarily in the ceramic studio, and I've been spending a lot of time on the grounds growing vegetables.
Great. Julia?
Hello, my name is Julia Castor. I'm a ceramic artist and a fine art painter based out of Bucks County, PA. I first heard about Touchstone 3 years ago, and I came here for a workshop, a porcelain workshop. I wanted to come back in the worst way, and so I applied to be an intern here this year, and here I am.
Great. And Taylor?
Hi, I'm Taylor Mezzo. I'm a ceramic artist from Illinois, and yeah, I'm here at Touchstone, and I applied because I just graduated from my BFA, and I wanted to gain sort of more like outside of academia experiences. So I'm happy to be here.
And Mac?
Hi, my name is McKenna Hendrickson. I'm from Washington State, from the northwest corner of the Northwest, and I work mostly with steel. I'm in the blacksmithing studio right now, and I enjoy working with a lot of other materials as well. I came to Touchstone to learn more about blacksmithing and also to learn a little bit about how centers like this operate in general.
So I guess I should have introduced myself. Lindsay Gates, the executive director here at Touchstone, but I also am a product of being in craft schools my entire life and career. I graduated with a BFA and went on to do workshops, internships, eventually teach all at craft schools around the country, and then went into the administrative side of things. So for me, there's a lot of benefits to being involved in craft schools, whether it's as an intern or in another capacity. And one thing, kind of the most obvious thing, is access to studio space and equipment. So did anybody want to talk about what that meant for them in their career, in their stage of life right now? Was that something that was really appealing that maybe you wouldn't have had access to otherwise? Feel free to unmute yourself.
Upon taking my job at Touchstone Center for Crafts, I had recently come off of an apprenticeship, learning how to fire wood kilns and Noborigama kiln, which is exactly what Touchstone has. And the kiln that I had learned on was built by the same person that had built Touchstones, Kevin Crow. So one of my biggest drives to learn how to become like a better maintenance and grounds person was the fact that I also had the opportunity to fire a Noborigama kiln and almost manage the community firings that we do here. So not only was working here like a huge benefit, but that kiln was one of my biggest attractions and still is one of my favorite parts of Touchstone.
And Mac, I imagine that having access to our pretty well-equipped blacksmithing studio must be a benefit.
Absolutely. The studio is very well equipped. And as someone who came to Touchstone in kind of like a journeyman phase of my education, I'm traveling around working in different areas for different craftspeople. I don't have a home base with a studio at this point, and so having access to a space like this that is so diversified in the different types of techniques and processes that can be utilized is a major benefit. I've been able to focus on work that I was already making kind of in production, as well as explore a number of new processes that I wouldn't be able to on my own without access to a shop with this type of equipment.
Another thing that I really loved about being an intern, and I love about craft schools in general, is that it builds its own community, right? So you guys are all as interns, working side by side in the studios. You're also living on our campus. You're sort of immersed in the whole scene for the entire duration that you're there. How has that been for everybody? And do you see that as a benefit? Are there unexpected things that come out of that? Are you able to kind of cross-pollinate ideas and dip in and out of other studios?
Absolutely. I would say, as someone who works primarily alone, being in a community of makers, even doing things completely different from what I'm doing, especially doing things completely different, has been just electric and very energizing and inspiring, and something I forgot how much I need that. And I feel personally like I have grown so much as an artist and as a creative just from listening to the other interns' experiences, watching them work, and picking up that energy.
Taylor, did you have anything to add to that? Taylor Fentz?
Yeah, I was gonna say that there were a couple different things that or materials and techniques that I hadn't had a lot of experience with, maybe just a little bit to know that I wanted to pursue them. And I know that some of the interns have come to me as well with things that they've wanted to do that they're not quite sure the best way to go about. And we will talk to each other in different areas because maybe someone in a different area has used a certain tool that would be applicable for what you're doing or a technique. And just having that, all of those extra different backgrounds to bounce like technical ideas off of for different projects kind of is really nice for when you're trying to broaden your scope outside of traditional mediums.
Yeah.
Medium.
Well, I think that the network that you're able to build when you're in an internship, now 2020 has been a little unusual because we didn't have our normal workshop season. But those of you who have been through a typical workshop season, can you speak a little bit, Stacy, maybe about like what is it like with all of these professional artists who are coming through on a weekly basis? To me, I always thought craft schools are just magic because I don't have to go anywhere to meet all my idols. They all come to me throughout the summer. So how has that been for you, Stacy?
It's been really great having like artists coming in ceramics, but as well as other mediums, because every week we'll have demos in different studios and you get to experience what other artists are making and doing, and how even like the materials that they use are somewhat similar to ceramics, and like seeing how they're comparable on different mediums. It's really interesting.
One of my favorite collaborations, Mac, was when you worked on the paintbrushes. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, that was great fun. It just happened that the week that Dan and Troy were running their brush making and wood firing class, that we were in between classes in the forge, and so I was working on projects in the studio and just popped into ceramics for a quick visit and was invited for the afternoon to learn about brush making with bamboo, and then returned to the forge and made a series of brushes on my own, and then collaborating with Troy, where the handle was made of steel pipe, which behaves very similarly to bamboo, except you can squish it around and decorate it in a whole different way. So that was super exciting, and I have made brushes since then as well. So now I'm able to gift my painting and ceramic artist friends brushes also.
Now, at Touchstone, we really aspire to have our assistant interns, which is maybe the first rung of internship that requires less knowledge of studio equipment, move up the next year to be a technician intern, which then they would know a lot more about the equipment and be able to safely run a studio. And that is done in exchange for being there for living there, having studio space, and also receiving a small stipend for each week. Do you find that having that kind of responsibility, for those of you who have been in charge of one of our studios, gives you the ability to learn a lot about equipment so that you feel confident that you could maybe start a studio of your own or go on to manage another studio? Is that something that has been a benefit to your positions? Meg, maybe since you've been there a few years, you could
Yeah, absolutely. speak
to that.
I think that I have grown so much since being an assistant to a tech. As an assistant, I was pretty new. I mean, I knew how to fire electric kilns and everything, but I didn't quite understand how to operate a studio and how you really need to be in a time crunch and be organized and know when to load a kiln and know when it's going to come out. And if anything a problem comes arise, you know how to handle it. And I think from that transition to becoming a tech, I really feel much more comfortable running a studio now. I have no problem being prepared, mixing glazes and having all the materials ready for instructors. And it was really a learning experience and something that I completely benefited from.
Great. Another thing that we really we strive for is to provide professional development opportunities and learning for all of our interns. And we've done this in a variety of different ways over the years. Typically, we have the interns mount a professional exhibition, whether it's of their work or an invitational at an offsite location, so that the budgeting on up to the point when we have to return work is all handled. And I think, let's see, Stacy, you were heavily involved in the last one, as was Meg and Anne. Would you say that experiences like that really open your eyes up to what is involved?
Definitely. Like seeing the whole process through of putting together a show, from like the contract up to like getting the pieces installed in the gallery and making sure the gallery is set up and presentable. There's so much to it, and it's been great, like learning every part of the process.
And you'll never be late for turning in images again to any other exhibition, right?
Yeah.
Once you're on the other side of it. We also this year brought in, through Zoom, we did a perceived value. That's the podcast, but Sarah Rachel Brown, right, did a little exercise with you guys about thinking about where to place your work based on what the perceived value of it was. How was that? Maybe Jessica, you were involved in that, and Julia, you two were involved even though you weren't on campus yet. Jessica, do you want to speak a little bit about what that experience was like? And is that type of thing something that really added to your experience at Touchstone?
Most definitely. It was very eye-opening to see, because I put two different types of my work into the perceived value kind of poll that we did online. And it was really nice to see how different people approached the pieces, considering one was jewelry and one was sculptural, and just the wide variety of price ranges and what people perceived it as being worth. And it was just a really good opportunity.
And Julia, how about for you?
I completely agree with what Jess said. It was kind of a very unique experience because of doing a project like that in a community of other makers, where we can talk about what our experiences are and what the results say, but also having it be in a way curated and led by Sarah Rachel Brown, someone with really deep knowledge about pricing and kind of guiding us through that process. It really was very eye-opening and a really great learning curve.
That's great. So the one thing that I felt the first time that I ever stepped on a campus of a craft school was I felt like, oh, I feel like I'm home. This just feels so right. And I have spent my entire career trying to stay in that kind of environment. And I think for me, what it spoke to was just this very inclusive, very welcoming, non-judgmental environment that was all about being creative in every way imaginable. I'd love to hear maybe Taylor Mezzo, is that something that resonates with you? Is that part of what you like about being in this type of environment?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to bring up how I thought Touchstone kind of just like went out of their way to make sure everybody was safe and comfortable, and especially during the pandemic that we were like, that everybody was just safe is a really good word, like all things considered. But yes, it does feel like home, you're around other creatives and we just care for each other. We're living in close quarters. It's very nice, yeah.
And you've all been getting along from what I could tell. So there is enough space on campus that if you're not, you can get away from each other, I guess. So that's always a good thing. You can go take a walk. But how does everybody else feel? Is that something that you notice when you go to other schools? I mean, to me, it's like the whole craft community, I think, is so welcoming and they really embrace everyone. And I never feel like there's any judgment on, we can have these open discussions about pricing, about aesthetics and other things, and it's very comfortable. And I think that's something that really draws me into this community. And I have to say, with the pandemic, I think one of the things that I've seen come out of it is just, it's really shown how much the craft community binds together and sees each other as support as opposed to as competing. And it's been really a beautiful thing to watch. Have you guys felt that you've started to embrace the greater craft field, and has being part of Touchstone played any role in that? Jessica?
I was just wanting to add also that especially when going to other craft schools, because I have been to Airmont and I have been to Penland, a large part of that, even though we're not running a regular workshop schedule, just being able to go into the other studios and talking with people is really beneficial in just building that community as well as getting feedback about things. And even when I was here, I went into the ceramic studio and was doing some throwing with Julia. And I think that it's really good when other mediums kind of trade places and come and work in things that they're not necessarily comfortable with, and kind of being able to teach each other even just small little skills.
And everybody's so giving in that way, I've always found. Have you guys found that as well, that people are really open to share their techniques and, show people what they want to learn, which is always a nice thing?
And also like troubleshooting projects. So when people have problems and they're not sure how to go about it, they might ask a few different people that are around campus, trying to get different feedback about where the next step could be.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about the future as well. Touchstone really feels strongly that we would love to help people in our internship program find opportunities. And one of the places where we see a lot of opportunity is in this region. There are a lot of economic development projects that really are embracing the arts. And there are also just so many sources of support that I have found for artists in Pittsburgh and the surrounding region. And I know that we weren't able to go in person this year, but we were able to introduce you to some of those places like the Brew House, Creator Square in Johnstown, and also Monmade, and what support they offer to emerging and mid-career artists. So I'd love to hear, now Taylor, maybe you can start, Taylor Fentz, but I'd love to hear about your future plans. We've had some interns pursue and relocate to the area, and it's always good to hear what everybody is thinking about. So what do your next few years look like, and is potentially relocating to the area something that you're interested in, or taking advantage of any of the opportunities that have been presented?
Yeah, I ended up getting a lot more than I ever expected out of being here in that regard. Partly because I was in a weird spot where I was originally planning on going back to university, but due to a number of different events, I needed to drop out, and it just wasn't right for me anymore. And so I was in a really odd limbo space, which I think a lot of us are, and just a lot of people that would be coming to this internship tend to be in, whether it be, just now leaving undergrad, just now leaving grad school, just in a, outside of academia, transitional stage like Mac was talking about. And so I didn't know what I was going to do. I was really worried, and I really, really wanted to stay working in the field because I love it. And so I set up a meeting with Lindsay, and I was talking to Dan and Travis and Stacy, and everyone was so helpful, and just was like, every time they'd see me, they were like, did you find anything? Well, let me think if I can think of something else, and I'll give you this phone number and that. And then through some connections and Zoom meetings and phone calls and things like that, I ended up connecting with Monmade. And so now I'm in the start of going through their creative business accelerator, which is
That's
really,
fantastic.
yeah, I'm really excited about that. And it was so easy. Like, once I contacted Katie, we just set up interviews, and she sends me little to-dos, and I feel like that's going to be a really good learning experience. And then I also took on a position at Creator Square of the on-site project coordinator, and that was really, really exciting. And the whole experience of searching and being scared, but having such a great support system that really did care about what might happen to me when I leave here, was so comforting. And it felt so specific, like it wasn't false. Like I mentioned to Lindsay that I really love this environment here at Touchstone, and I love the idea of working for a craft school and everything that nonprofits do. And then that got really specific, because now I'm kind of headed to a similar space to work in.
It's great. We love those success stories. Anyone else? Jessica, what are you on to next?
So I'm actually going back to Tennessee. I am in the process of building out a small kind of home studio area where I can do some smaller scale fabrication. But I recently bought a casting setup before I came up here. And my dad has a 20 by 60 building on his property that he's actually outfitting part of it to be a studio space for me. Granted, it's a couple hours away, but even just going to visit for a weekend, I feel like I could get a lot done just building everything up in the time that I'm at home in Middle Tennessee, and then going to East Tennessee to doing all the casting and all that other kind of bigger work that I can't do at my apartment.
Nice. Stacy?
So from here, I have actually been accepted to West Virginia University to start grad school for ceramics. And it's great because it's only 40 minutes away from Touchstone. So it's really convenient for me, and it's a good school. So I'll actually be starting there in the spring.
Wonderful. I don't know, either Meg or Dan, who wants to go first?
Well, I also got in touch with Katie Johnson for Creative Business Accelerator. So I'm going to start working with her and hopefully starting up my business more appropriately and actually like officially, which I'm really excited about. And then I have a studio in Pittsburgh. So I'm going to go back to my studio in Pittsburgh and my house in Pittsburgh, which I was able to buy in between my internship at Touchstone.
Dan?
After this, I will be going back to my home studio that I share with Meg. And, well, it's not at our home, but it's in Pittsburgh. And working towards just getting a bunch of pots ready for some wood firings next year. And then hopefully turning the strange page of having virtual sales. I had a bunch of inventory for some sales that I had set up, and now I'll be doing them online. So it'll be fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
Mac?
Well, I'm still kind of in the process of putting the pieces together, but I'm excited about a number of things. I just got back from a week-long internship with the Rivers of Steel Arts group in Pittsburgh that do mostly casting. So I was able to intern with them for their week-long iron casting class through connections that I've made. I met them through them doing demonstrations and one of their instructors teaching a workshop at Touchstone. And through that community, I've connected with other folks. I will likely be going to Detroit for an iron pour in October. And I'm enjoying the flexibility that I have right now of not being committed to living in any one specific place. I'm willing to get stuck in Pittsburgh for a while if that comes together. And through another connection that I made at Touchstone with a previous intern and instructor, Anna Koplik, I have a job interview next week for a place in Texas. So I'm not sure yet, but I have a lot of options that I'm excited about. Most
Exciting.
are through Touchstone.
That's exciting. Julia?
I have a lot of ideas and things that I'm planning to start in the future. I'm going back to Bucks County, and I'm going to start a very part-time teaching job as an art teacher at a classical private school. Wood firing here has reignited the desire to seek out more opportunities to wood fire. So I'm hoping to look into maybe doing an internship or an apprenticeship in that area. And then I also talked with Meg a lot about all the residencies that she has done. So I'm hoping to maybe do some residencies and also maybe come back to Touchstone next year.
Great. And Taylor?
I am one of the interns who is fully trying to relocate to the Pittsburgh area after this, which is something I never would have planned, but like you guys have sold me on the opportunities in the community in the area, and I really dig it. So that's what I'm looking forward to and what I'm trying to manifest for my future.
That's great. Well, we certainly, our dream would be that everybody would move to the area and stay around. I think that it's a wonderful area, and it's only enhanced by more creatives moving this way. So we do know that if you don't relocate here, you'll be back to visit or to participate in another internship or residency or potentially teach. We really love to give our interns the opportunity to teach, because we do know that it's really hard to get that first opportunity. So many places want you to have experience, but how do you get the experience, right? So make sure you stay in touch with us, because just like Mac said, Anna was an intern at Touchstone. We gave her a teaching opportunity. She now teaches all over the country. And we really love being able to provide that as a launching pad for people's careers. So keep that in mind as you move forward. And I don't have any other questions for you. If anybody wants to say anything else about their time at Touchstone, feel free to unmute yourself and say whatever it is that you want to add to the conversation. Otherwise, I will sign us off. Okay. I am excited about your exhibition that you're going to be debuting at the open house virtually this year. So I hope that anybody who's tuning in will click over to see what you guys have been up to and potentially shop through for some great items. But thanks again for joining in, and it really has been a pleasure having everybody at Touchstone. One of my favorite parts of this job is meeting all the interns that come through the doors and seeing where they go in the future. So I think that you guys are the future of crafts, and we really look forward to watching to see where you go and where you land. So thanks again.